Assalamu alaikum. This is the KIK representative POBUMS Society. Today I am here with the executive director of Indivisible Aurora. Did I say that right?
You did, but I don't like titles.
Okay, I understand. I don't like them better. I'm here with Luma, and we're going to talk about everything. Introduce yourself.
So Luma Bonilla Webster. I don't know. What do y'all want to know?
I just broke my glasses.
Why'd you do that for?
I was trying to clean them.
You were trying to look professional and it backfired on you.
The true nature comes out. Cannot get it. Oh, this is... Oh, hell. All right.
Is that working out for you today?
It did not work out.
Let's see. I'm an organizer. I'm a mother. We're talking about anime. I'm an anime watcher. I'm been in Aurora. I'm not a lifelong Auroran.
All right.
That seems really weird to me when people say that.
Let's start there.
But
so where were you born at and where did you come from? Excuse me.
So I was born in Durango, Mexico. So I am Mexicana. I was undocumented for a while and then an immigrant green card holder for many years. And I actually just recently got my citizenship. I grew up in Maywood. I went to Rice High School, which is the same school that Fred Hampton went to.
Okay.
Which I didn't learn until a couple years ago because a lot of his history and his work and his activism was completely erased from the city, from the school. Like the students don't know anything about it. There's no monuments. There's nothing. That was never mentioned. And actually, like growing up there, Maywood is mostly Black and Latine. And one of the things that struck me the most was actually going to school through security monitors and having your bags checked and having the drug sniffing dogs down the hallways, having random checks and locked doors in school classrooms. Like that was my 2-year high school experience because I dropped out. I was like, this is not for me.
Tell us why you said this isn't for me. You dropped out, and then what did you do?
Oh my God, you should have given me a warning. This is going to be my life story. So, I mean, I guess it's important to talk about, right? So, because I come from an immigrant family, like we struggled adjusting. My parents had multiple jobs, and I'm also the oldest.
Okay.
So I was responsible for a lot of things.
How many siblings do you have?
I have 3 other siblings. Okay. I have 1 sister and 2 brothers.
Okay.
And like my parents weren't home all of the time. They were always working, and if they weren't working, they were trying to adjust shifts. So I took on a lot of responsibility. They were also very strict, so I wasn't allowed to do a lot of things. And in all of that, I'm a very rebellious person.
Okay.
And so I ended up, I don't know, pushing back a bit. Like I wanted to be able to go out with my friends, and I wasn't allowed. I wanted to be able to participate in like other after school activities, and I wasn't allowed. So a lot
you
of
weren't
that,
allowed because you had
responsibilities
at home.
Not just because I had responsibilities, but because I am a female, because I'm a woman, and so there was a lot of like protection there, especially from my dad.
Okay.
So, yeah, I wasn't allowed to do a lot of things, and I started rebelling. When I think back on it now, it's still pretty complicated. Like I love school, I love learning. I was a really good student for the most part. I always got good grades. I was honors, but I wasn't in the best environment. I wasn't in the best environment either at school. I was bullied. I didn't really get along with a lot of people. I didn't have a ton of friends. The few friends that I did have were struggling with their own thing. I had friends who I've lost now due to substance use and abuse. I have friends who've lost because of gun violence and being involved in gangs.
Now, did that shape your activism role and how you wanted help
Yeah,
people.
because that was the conditions with what I lived with, right? There was never any support. So I look at going to a school with mostly people of color, but all of my educators, all of the social workers were all white. They could not understand or could never understand what it was like to be an immigrant, what it was like to be poor, none of those things.
Okay.
So sure, there were supports, and we could bring stuff up, but we were never taken seriously. I was never taken seriously. My bullying issues, nobody ever took that seriously. And then all of that followed me into high school. So my first year of high school, again, I lost so many people, and I tried to kind of stay away from that, and it wasn't working out. So I started ditching school. You would find me across the street eating pizza pockets and trying to find a ride to somebody else's house so we could hang. And then I got a boyfriend in my sophomore year, my early sophomore year, and I got pregnant. Or not pregnant, sorry. I ran away from home. There was too many pressures, too much going on. I ended up leaving to go all the way to Wisconsin by myself. For a while, I was on my own, unhoused, sleeping in a car for a little bit. Sleeping in families' couches and beds, trying to get jobs, but I hated working in Wisconsin. And eventually I came back. I was in and out of in a relationship with a boyfriend that I had who was abusive, who was horrible. And
you know why you stayed up in a relationship?
Yeah, because I was looking for something. You know what that was? Okay. Connection and love and understanding. Okay. And somebody who would listen. And while he was abusive, we were also young. I had those moments, and I thought I had to cling to them. Eventually, once I had my daughter, I was like, I don't want that anymore because I have somebody else to take care of. I have other responsibilities now. And unfortunately for me, fortunately for her, because she's the best kid ever, it kind of, took me out of that. But I remember being pregnant in school and struggling with issues and trying to reach out to people, and nobody was there. Nobody would listen. To them, I was just another teen pregnancy. To them, I was just another problematic kid, right? And so, of course, that shaped a lot of what I wanted to do because I understood people's struggles. I understood what it's like to not have your needs met. I understood what it was like to be out on the streets. I understood what was happening to my friends who were in gangs and experiencing gang violence. I have lived experience from all of those things. So that's part of what shapes my activism. It's part of what motivates me because I just want to do better. Also, just fucking care, right? Just care about people and their circumstances, because so much could be avoided if we provided for people and provided for their needs, but we don't do that.
That's a perfect segue. You like that word, segue. All right. So from there, let's come into the now with Aurora, with Indivisible Aurora. Tell me, how did you join that, or how you got started in that, or what brought that together, and like what made you say, you know what, it's my time to shine, baby, shine.
So it was Orange Face. In my family, it's he who shall not be named, but it's Trump. You know who I'm talking about.
He who shall not be named.
He who shall not be named.
Sounds like a record.
Back when he was running for president, I was still an immigrant, green card holder. My family, of my immediate family, only my parents had citizenship and my siblings. So I was kind of the loner. But I have so many other family members who are undocumented. Yeah.
So explain the difference between undocumented and having a green card.
Yeah.
All right. So explain that.
Yeah.
If you have a green card, you can't be deported, or you can be deported.
You can be.
You can be. All right. Break that down. Break it down for
Yeah.
us.
So undocumented means that you've crossed the border. There's legal. I hate that language, but I guess there's multiple ways to come to the States, right? So if you're here, um, and you're not allowed to work, you don't have a social security number, um, and you haven't been processed through immigration.
So that's undocumented.
That's undocumented.
Okay.
A person who has papers or who is documented, usually you have a work visa or you have a green card, and there's a process for that. For some families, you either have someone who's a U.S. citizen and they're applying for you on behalf of you to get green card status. For some of us, like me and my family, we got ours through amnesty.
Okay.
And that was back in 92, 93. So that's how I got it. Trump is the devil, but so is Biden. If you really want to go there. So we did. So we got ours through amnesty, and if you go back to early, I want to say 1920s, 1930s, in the U.S., there was a time when there was a lot of fear. I want to say like I forget the details, but it's accurate historical information. You can Google it, research it. Literally, I think it's go to history.com and it'll freaking be there. But there was a time when the U.S. government deported Mexican citizens and residents. A lot of it was fear for jobs. A lot of it was taking away land and property from people who have historically lived on this land and trying to, expel them so they could take that over. It happened to Mexican and Mexican Americans. It happened to Chinese and Japanese Americans back in that time. So there, even though you have a green card, you can be deported. Now, in the United States, also, if you commit a felony, you can be deported too. So there's circumstances where that may happen, and your green card can be revoked. So,
because I was reading, I either read an article or it was on NPR. Soldiers who were Latino or undocumented, but I guess they thought that since they were up in the army, that would help them get citizenship. And some of those soldiers, like they got deported. Yeah, like they got deported, which I was like, man, that's like super fucked up. You know what I'm saying? And like some of these guys have served in theaters of war up in Iraq and Afghanistan and around the world, and then like you come back here and like you get deported. Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. It's
a recruitment measure. They don't give you the information correctly on purpose because you're a tool to be used, right? So we go into high schools and recruit students to go out, get in the military, Air Force, whatever, without clearly explaining what it is that they're getting into. And our LTC program, all of those things. But yeah, even if you have a green card, you can be deported.
All right. Now let's jump to Indivisible Aurora. Tell me how
I got involved.
All right. So it was the him who shall not be named.
He who shall not be named. So there was a lot of uptick in conversation surrounding the border wall and tougher immigration policies and mass deportations. That was part of his platform.
Right.
For me, all I could think of was my family members who have lived here for years, who now have families of their own with children who are citizens.
One question.
Yeah.
This just popped in my head. So if you're undocumented, but you're here in the States, but you have children, your children are citizens?
If they're born here, yes.
Oh, they're born here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Now let's go back to what you were saying. Like, that just popped in my head. ADD. All right, go ahead.
Yes.
All right.
So there's a personal connection there, right? And that was also my beginning into more of a political understanding of what was going on. And I wanted, I don't know, to do something. I didn't know at the time what the heck it was. I also knew at the time there was in more of an uprise in violence towards the LGBTQ community, and I identify as part of that community. So I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know that there's something. Um, and then we moved to Aurora shortly after.
Surprise,
right?
surprise, surprise, surprise.
So we did a we were just kind of moving around, not doing anything specific, like unpacking boxes and stuff. And my husband's like, hey, there's this thing in the paper about a pride parade happening in Aurora, and there's some pushback. Something about a permit for the parade. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I just did a Google search and found out that they were having a meeting. And I went, and I really liked what they were talking about. At the time, the president of the organization was Chuck Adams. I met with him. I kind of talked about what was going on, and they were working on other issues related to immigration, which was bringing the Welcoming City Ordinance to Aurora, to the city of Aurora. And I was like, okay, I'm down. I want to support the inaugural Pride Parade. I want to support this Welcoming City Ordinance. And they're kind of doing some work around the political atmosphere, both at the national and at the local level. Yeah, and that was kind of it. I mean, that was like almost 8 years ago now.
Let me ask you this since you brought that up. So is Aurora a welcoming city, but it's not a sanctuary city?
Neither.
It's neither.
Neither.
Okay.
Neither. None of that got passed.
So a welcoming city would be like what?
So it basically just means that there are restrictions around ICE activity in the city proper. It doesn't mean that like we're providing anything, you know, in terms of services or funding or anything like that to migrant community or immigrant community. All it means is that ICE cannot operate in specific ways, and according to jurisdiction, right? Because the city cannot overrule federal law.
Right.
But it also means that we ask our police force to practice certain policies. Some of them were covered at the state level. So, like, for example, you can't ask someone what their immigration status is when you pull them over. So it includes like little bits and pieces of that.
All right. Now explain what a sanctuary city would
be.
It's
the same thing.
Okay.
Some of the language is interchangeable. Some people argue like welcoming city is better than sanctuary city. I believe at the time there was actually a term that we were trying to move away from, which might have been sanctuary city, but that was years ago. So to be honest, I don't even remember anymore. It goes through a lot of changes. So
now with Indivisible Aurora, what have you guys done in the past, and what are you trying to work on now?
So like the sanctuary city ordinance, that was one. We didn't really get our welcoming city ordinance. We didn't really get any traction on that. We at some point did some work to try to bring some education to the public about our elders running for office. So we did like voter cards that we distributed throughout the city, and we kind of ranked the aldermen based on different topics. We only did that 1 year, and the only reason why at the time was because we had capacity, but also it's just a lot of work to be able to provide that information. Gotcha. And then shortly after we hit the pandemic, so we couldn't really do a whole lot. We kind of switched to providing and helping out with like mutual aid work, which is where we would connect people to services, kind of talk about what services were available. We did live streams that covered different topics. We supported the Black Lives Matter movement. We did some work in initiating what was the like artwork downtown after the Black Lives Matter protests. We've done some work against the funding of the Aurora Police Department because we were active with trying to defund APD. And now we do some more like local have this new project, this grant funded project that was inspired by another project that we're working on, which is at the more like a national level. We're part of a state coalition, which is PCFS, which is the People's Coalition for Freedom and Safety, where we're trying to replace and repeal Biden's 1994 crime bill by creating and then ratifying and implementing our own bill. We had community conversations with people, especially incarcerated and impacted people, where we asked them, like, what do you want to see from your government? What sort of services or funding or things like that do you think would actually help reduce crime, that would actually, up community morale, that would actually materially provide for the things that you need to be able to have a comfortable life, right? And so we did that through what we call a People's Movement Assembly. And we had, I don't know, over 100, 200 people.
Oh, nice.
And we covered those, so we asked specific questions. We talked about those important issues. And now we're pretty close to finalizing what a bill framework would look like. And then the Illinois Coalition then works with the national organization and the other different state coalitions, and hopefully maybe next year or sometime in the future it'll actually be introduced in Congress. Who knows? If we can get support from our representatives to get something done, we might actually see that. So whether or not that happens, I don't know.
That is very impressive.
But we'll see. And through that project, we were kind of inspired to do a mini version. One of our coalition partners, which is the Illinois Alliance for Reentry and Justice, they helped us secure funding to do something similar, but at the local level, so hyper local level here in Aurora. It's called the Aurora Participatory Democracy Hub.
I've heard about that.
Long ass name. And we don't we refer to it as the hub.
Oh, okay.
It's just easier to say. Everybody likes it better. If you're in the know, then you know that's what we call it. That's kind of cool. But part of that is providing education to community. So we did 4 local government education sessions throughout September and October, where we talked about what the role of government is, what type of government we have, what the role of the older people are. We talked about the budget, which oftentimes we don't get as much engagement in what city governments actually look like and what types of funding they provide. Like, what does their budget actually provide for? Their budget is a reflection of the city and what we want to see out of it and how they support their community and their people. But we don't pay attention to that, right? So oftentimes aldermen and other representatives just look at people as voting numbers. You're a statistic.
Correct.
Right? You're just part of this cog to help me get where I need to do. You're a means to an end, and that's it. The less that you participate in this governmental process, the better for me. So for us, it's like, no. We provide you that money. It comes out of my pocket. I want to say what it can be invested in and what that process looks like and how you're spending my money. And we invite people to learn about that. So we talked about the budget. We kind of broke it down. For those that are unaware, we are actually in the middle of finalizing what the 2024 budget is going to look like. So if you're interested, visit the finance committee meetings. Those are where they're talking about how we're spending our money, the different decision packages for each of the city departments, which is basically what money they're asking for. All of those things. So we talked about that. We talked about the things that are more complicated, which are the reasons why most people won't go to city council meetings, which is I don't understand it, right? I'll go to, I know I've had conversations with people who are like, I want to go, but I don't know what's going on. Or I have gone, but I don't know what they're talking about. I can't follow the meeting. I don't understand the language that they're using, or the process, and everything is just too complicated, right? So we broke it down. This is what the format that it normally follows. This is the language that they use, which is Robert's Rules of Orders, and try to simplify that process for people so that they feel more capable of showing up to meetings and speaking out. What else did we talk? We talked about FOIA. We talked about lots of things. So, like I said, it was 4 different sessions. Hopefully, we'll be able to bring that back again next year and kind of expand a little bit more. But we had really good engagement, and people had lots of questions. And oftentimes, I would ask people at the end of that, like, take some time and really think about what you want your community to look like. What sort of investments do you want to see? Because it takes that imagination, and it takes your material understanding to be able to explain it to people and ask for what you want, and to be able to get what you want, right?
Now, let me ask you this. From my dealings in Aurora with different organizations and politicians and stuff like that, in your mind, what is the best way to get people inspired, motivated to get involved? Because here in Aurora, I don't know if it's apathy or if people just gave up or they just don't care, but it's very hard to get people motivated to even care about an issue. It's like they care about it as long as it affects them for 2 seconds, and then it's, I don't know, back to watching Friends or whatever.
Back to watching Friends.
But so, like, what do you do, or what does your organization do to try to get people more involved and motivated and stuff?
You can't make people do what they don't want to do, first of all. The other thing is we, the working class people, live under conditions that make it difficult for us to be able to be more involved, because we have to work 9 to 5 or odd jobs, 12, 14-hour days, or working multiple jobs. Most of us have children, families to raise. That makes things difficult. If you're, working class as well, your rent's skyrocketing right now. The cost of food is skyrocketing right now. Just existing is fucking hard. So you have to come at things with that understanding, to say that I know that things are difficult for you, and then ask, then how can I help you? What can I do to make it easier for you to be able to be more engaged, and see what you can provide from that. Part of our work with the Participatory Democracy Hub is we provide, part of the stipulation for our grant funding was to be able to provide stipends for the leadership so that they can actually participate. So they're not doing work for free.
Gotcha.
We also do a lot of mutual aid work, right? To try and invite people to come out. Feeding people is another huge one, right? Every time we get a chance, we try to feed people. If they're there with us and they're sitting and they're eating, and they're engaging in our conversations, and they're talking to us about what's going on, and we're talking to them about the work that we're doing. So it's finding that common ground, with the understanding that it's really difficult to exist right now. And part of there's also, a reason for that. We keep people busy so that they're not engaged, and so part of that is also helping them understand that, like, you can't live in this vicious cycle forever. At some point, you have to stand up and do something about it.
Sounds good. We have some comments.
I'm afraid to look at the comments.
I don't even want to look at the comments myself. Let me see. First comment is
Trump 2024. Orange face.
All right, let me.
Nick, hey bestie.
Trump is not the devil. The government is. Okay, we're gonna just leave that comment
No,
there. The next one is.
That's fine. We had to keep going. We're looking.
What's
Sandy
up,
was
Sandy?
watching.
Yeah, anyone who wants to protect their borders is the devil, according to some. Okay, we're just gonna leave that comment.
I'm all for open borders.
You-
That'd be great.
Trump 2024. Okay. Anyone? That's the same
I
comment.
don't think that's any better, but whatever. I think it keeps.
Who is this?
You're brought over by your parents or other relatives. You may not know other home other than the U.S. You went to American schools. Brian used to be on our board.
Okay.
It's hard to see his comment. It keeps reciting.
Yeah.
Some might not even speak English. Yeah, it's difficult. My parents had a huge learning curve to get into. Besides taking care of us.
Heather Money's watching.
Hello.
It says a lot of people's watching, but then there's only one up there.
I know.
All right.
Nick, hey Bessie.
What's Nick? Check your email.
Oh man.
No.
Not
All right. So we're gonna wrap this up, but I want to ask you, what would be your vision for a better, more inclusive Aurora?
Oh my god, that's a big fucking question, man. My vision for a better Aurora.
Wait.
Uh-oh.
Y'all can't see this, but since I have ADD, it just popped in my mind. Look like her glasses has sparkling diamonds. Oh, that shit is cold, dude. It's cold. It's cold. Look at it. She's in here with the bling bling. I was like, she is flossing in here on the god.
My glasses are cool, okay?
Yeah. I like it. All right.
Oh my god.
So what's your vision for a more inclusive Aurora, a better, more inclusive Aurora for everybody?
More inclusive. You know, that's a funny word. Especially in Aurora.
Yeah.
Aurora's its residents are already inclusive.
Okay.
We have, I guess, what you call a melting pot of people here.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is due to the existence of World Relief and Family Focus, which provide services for migrant communities, provide homes and housing for migrant communities. Aurora is 42%. I think it's still about 40% Latine. We have a Muslim population. We are diverse. We have that inclusivity already. What I would like to see from that is having the city actually represent that. I mean, if you want to get into it, for example, we keep repressing their voices. The city just made amendments to the peddlers ordinance, for example, that prohibits businesses from being able to sell their wares on street corners and things like that. It prevents people from being able to sell, like the little carts and stuff with food. We had the issue last year with the food trucks, right? That's not inclusive. Some people are super happy to talk about being entrepreneurial and enterprising. The city loves talking business, right? We have a fucking financial empowerment center, where we're here to support your business and help you do better and bring people to Aurora. But then at the same time, we're stopping people from being able to have their own businesses and support themselves personally, right? So on one hand, as long as you're, multi-billionaire or multi-billion-dollar business, that's the people that we want, right? But if you're a working class person starting their own business, trying to survive, we don't want you. You're not allowed here. I would rather see that we're providing support to those of us in the community who are working class, who are trying to do better, and make the city look more like us. That's one thing. The other one is I'd like to see more environmental changes, right? One focus that we don't really have in IA, but it's inclusive in part of our work, is making sure that we're doing, is thinking about what the climate looks like, at least for me personally anyway, right? In that if we don't change the way that we live, if we don't change the things that we do, if we don't change our cities to be able to provide in such a way that it's not, destroying the only planet, that the livable planet that we have, then what are we doing? I think about my children and what sort of world I'm creating for them. And I want to see changes on the macro level, right? So national and worldwide. But what are we doing to support that locally? Um, and I mean, I don't know. I would rather have us in community talking about what we wanted to see. I don't think it should just come from my perspective. I have ideas, sure, but I want what's for the best of everybody. What can we do communally to be able to make the city that we want to see? And that starts by talking to people and asking them, what their needs are.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think everybody has the same level of access to city parks or aldermen and stuff like that? For instance, had a conversation with Mayor Richard Irvin one time. Said it to him in private, and then I said it to him in public about the listening sessions. I said, if there's a kid in Eastwood who says that he's being constantly harassed by the police, and you have a person that's about to donate billions of dollars to a project, who are you going to listen to?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't answer me in private, and he didn't answer me like up in public, because sometimes I feel like the access is not the same. If I go to a city council meeting and speak, it is what it is. But let's say HelloFresh comes in there and speaks. Oh my God! Oh my
you
God!
brought HelloFresh into it.
So like I just feel like the access is just not the same. If you have money, then like you're heard if you drop a pin on the floor. But if you don't have money, you almost have, I'm not going to say riot, but you almost have to kick up dust up in a loud way in order for somebody just to pay attention to
mobilize. I think Irvin and just the general council and the way that their representatives work they're a mirror of what our state reps and senators look like, of how our national government works. They're all the same. If they all work for
so this is the macro of
this is
the micro
this
of the
is
macro,
the micro of the
macro,
right? I mean, it's true. There's a slight difference in that politically, generally, if you're more engaged locally, you see change faster. Because it's easier to make those changes than it is to do so on the national, federal government level, right? That's true. But the way that we function, the policies and the rules, especially our electoral process, it's all the same. Like I said, most of these politicians just look at us as a vote, a number. And I got what I needed out of you. I don't need you anymore. So if you're talking to me about, being harassed by the police, well, okay, that's the police's job. What do you want me to do about it? That's the mentality. But in the meantime, if I can get funding from this person to create, something on paper that seems like I did something good and helps me win my next reelection, that's what I'm going to focus on. So fundamentally, we have to change how that works. So of course, that means that oftentimes the only way that they will listen is to mobilize and to gather lots of people to raise an issue. And we should be doing that, and we should be doing that more often, because we're doing it for the betterment of our communities. We're doing it for the betterment of ourselves. We're doing it for our existence. And they're not thinking about it that way, right? They're thinking about it as, what can I do for myself? I will say that the city has been doing a little better.
She said a little better.
With trying to make community sessions available for people, like they did with the suggestion for, what was it, the walkways, the pedways or bicycle ways, whatever the heck you want to call them. I'm blanking right now. I couldn't make it to that, but in opening up those conversations to community. Like, that's what it should be like.
Right.
That's what it should look like. Any sort of massive decision making where we're spending millions upon millions of dollars as a city should be brought forth to the community to decide what it is that, what do we want to do this? What does that look like?
Mm.
Because that's an actual investment. We want to decide what we want that to look like. But most people think of it again like as a business. Well, we elected them so that they can, be our representatives and to make the decisions for us. But it actually shouldn't work that way, because unless we're watching them, then they're not making the best decision for us. And unless they know what we need, then they're not going to make the best decisions for us. And what we need changes all of the time.
That's a good point. Mrs. Hartburn, R.I.P., I had a conversation with her once, and she said, when you run for office, everybody's in back of you, cheering you on. But once you get in office, like they forget about you.
Yeah.
And then she said it's hard to make decisions when you're in office alone and like you have no backing like from the community.
Right.
So I was like, it was deep, but
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why we want to get people more involved, to be like, so if something happened in your community, then talk to your older person. Mm-hmm. Get a group of people together and make them listen to you. Get a group of people together to raise that issue. Because, sometimes you reaching out to them doesn't really do very much. They might just be like, oh, I missed the email. Right. It went into my spam box or whatever. But if you have a community behind you that's asking for the changes you want, then you have a better chance of getting something done and a better chance of having them listen to you. Like, I can tell you for a fact that probably after we're done with our little conversation, the city has tools that monitor social media.
Did you know that?
Yes.
See, oh my God. See, most people don't know this, but like you read the Tribune, Beacon News and stuff, and it is what it is. But did you know that what is the park, the River's Edge Park? Mm-hmm. So like the city put in quote unquote Wi-Fi there. Everybody like, oh my God, why do you need Wi-Fi at the River's Edge Park? But if you read into it, that's also to help with surveillance.
Oh yeah.
Through out the city, and people don't know that. And then part of their surveillance packages, they can go on Instagram, mm-hmm. Facebook, TikTok, and if there's a disturbance up in the city and we're like typing about it, it can find who is the person that's telling people to meet or speaking up the most about it. I was like, what?
Yeah, the hell? They can see all of that. They can see all of that. Which is crazy. They say that it's to kind of measure morale on certain things.
Yeah.
They say that it's for data gathering and surveillance. So the Wi-Fi thing. There's also new installation of surveillance cameras mm-hmm. all over the city. We have drones all over the city. I don't know if they're being used all the time, but I know that in the upcoming budget for 2024, we're purchasing about 20 more.
See, I mean, like, I wish I could just open my brain and be like, here, this is because most people don't know that information. No. And if you're not in tune with like how the city works or the meetings, because like they'll like try to pass something through so fast and nobody knows about it, and then like when like we find out about it, it's too late to even protest about it because it's so swift and smooth. You know what I mean? They move
things really quickly, but the city has social media scrubbing tools, and they will review stuff. But I mean, it's also kind of everywhere. And my question usually is, are you okay with that? Because grocery stores use it. Mm-hmm. So if you're in the grocery store and you have your Wi-Fi on, and they can track which sections of the grocery store you linger at the most. Yeah. And then they review what sort of merchandise is in that area and whether or not they need to move stuff around. So you're constantly being monitored all of the time. But most people aren't aware of that. And we don't talk about that sort of surveillance all the time. We just pass it off as marketing and data gathering. But it's way more insidious than that.
I remember when it was Indivisible Aurora, the Aurora Rapid Response Team, POBUMS Society. I don't know if the People's Coalition was formed in, but it was about the riot gear,
Mhm.
and everybody was calling in, and we were like, boom, 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 and so we delayed the vote by like a week or two.
Mhm.
But to me, like that was like really good because like that just showed if everybody just came together, even if you're in different organizations, and like I think we all drafted a letter together and stuff that it does affect them, you know, like
Yep.
if you apply pressure and stuff. So I was
Yep.
like, man, that was really good.
That was a great meeting, and I distinctly remember. I think you can still watch it because it was on Facebook. So if you go to the city's website and go back a couple years, um, right after the council meeting ended, they didn't cut the video off right away.
And Richard Irving was like, oh, man.
Well, no, it wasn't
even
worse than that. I think he was just like, oh fuck, or shit or something. I don't remember, but he was cursing in the video, and then it cut off, and I was like, that's hilarious because he was feeling the pressure, right? It was so many people who called in to talk there, to make their public comment, because this was during the pandemic. The council meetings were not virtual; they were being held, or were not in person. They were being held virtually, and so many people showed up.
People were on Facebook talking about it and everything.
Yeah.
TikTok, so not TikTok, Instagram. Yeah, so it was really nice.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we didn't win, and I think the year after APD's budget actually increased. This year it's actually gone down, but it's minimally, especially considering that APD's budget, in terms of the city of Aurora's budget, I think is the second or third largest budget item on the budget, with over $80 million, $88 million, almost $90 million. And the city's community services is like, I don't know, just over $2 million. So that tells you what the priorities are, right? Again, like paying attention to those sorts of things is how we know what needs to be done and what sort of things we should be asking for.
All right, well, we're gonna wrap it up there. Is there anything you want to say?
I will add one more thing. Yeah. So I don't know how many people know about the Community Fridge Project, which we also did, which I neglected to talk about. But in December would have been its 2-year anniversary, and unfortunately, it had to be removed. So I'm not going to go into details right now because we're trying to kind of figure out what our messaging is going to be, what our action is going to be, and how we're going to respond. But we're looking for a home for what would have been the Indiro Community Fridge. Through our partnership with the food pantries, through our sandwich parties, through the food pantries, we gave almost over 4,000 pounds of food.
Oh, wow.
Through the sandwich parties, we provided just as many sandwiches, I want to say, because every month we did them, we made at least 300 to 500 sandwiches every time, and they were gone like the next day. We would fill the fridge in 2 rounds, and they didn't last very long. And that doesn't even count the people who brought groceries to the fridge on their own, who brought sandwiches and other cooked meals to the fridge on their own.
Explain what the community fridge is.
Yeah, so community fridges are a mutual aid project. We like to say, at least at IA, that we kind of hold the liability of the fridge, but the community owns the fridge.
Okay.
So the point of it is providing free food and resources to community members who have lack of access to food. That might be because they can't make the hours at the food pantry to pick up food because they work odd hours. That might be because maybe the food pantry food that they're getting is not enough. That might be because they don't have a kitchen to cook in because they're living in an encampment or living out of their cars and they need access to quick meals. The fridge provides for all of that. So we had volunteers that we managed that kind of had some drop-off schedules for food pantry foods. We had volunteers who had schedules for taking care of cleaning the fridge, so making sure everything was sanitary. But for the most part, it was community members who were allowed and had rights to drop off food and other resources whenever they wanted. And then other community members who were in need can come and take food. So the model of community fridges is take what you need, leave what you can. And we did that for almost 2 years.
Like that.
But now we're looking for another home for it. So if somebody is interested or has a lead or can point us in the right direction, we'd love to bring it back. I hope to bring it back. You don't understand the amount of people that were touched that used that fridge daily.
It's an actual.
It was an actual refrigerator outside. So if you didn't get to see it, but you know where Indiro is, it was in the patio level under the deck.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was in a regular fridge inside, like a wooden shelter that was decorated and painted, and it looked really cool. And yeah, you could open the fridge and take stuff or put stuff in. And then on the side, we had a little pantry, so you could put cereals, or I think every winter we used to do hand warmers, blankets and tents and things like that for community. In the summer, we would put ice cream bars and waters, frozen waters, and like all these things to serve the needs of the community that was using it, which was mostly Aurora's unhoused. We gave so much to that, and it served. I don't want to say served because we mutually were helping so many people. Mm-hmm. So I would love to see it back because there's definitely a huge need in Aurora. It's something that our local organizations like the food pantries and Hesed House have been trying to raise alarms about the fact that we're seeing an increase in our unhoused community, but the city won't talk about it. The city won't provide for them. And so we're trying to step up to be that gap. Again, I won't say too much, but I feel like we're being silenced for doing that work, and I don't want to.
Oh, really?
So again, I won't go into detail, but no, I want to make sure that we somehow bring that back to be able to provide for community, and have some of their needs met. Like we can't provide housing for people, though we are working on something. I also can't say too much about it because it doesn't quite exist yet. But hopefully we can find a new home for it and make our community aware so they can start using it again.
Okay. Well, this is the KIK here with Luma. She doesn't like titles, but she is the executive director of Indivisible Aurora.
I'm an organizer with Ailla, that's all.
She's an organizer. So I want to say thank you for coming through and wish you the best in all your endeavors. And to all of the grassroots organizations out there, keep doing what you're doing. Keep applying pressure to all of the food pantries out there. We thank you for helping those who are less fortunate. And I guess that's all. If you know anybody that you think I should interview that's doing positive work here in the city of Aurora or around Aurora, hit the guide and just let me know. Nicole, it's cold down here. Turn on the heat. All right. Peace.
Bye.